Our story begins with the narrator's words. A portal opened in the world. God's portal. We see many different creatures resembling monsters. All of them suddenly appeared in the human world. A few creatures came into our world, and over time, humans have harnessed the power of these creatures. However, time was running out. My name is Kang Ji Hyun. I'm a student at an institute specializing in the awakened who suffer from bullying by other students. We see a big ice object being thrown at the boy. The boy was sitting in the office and not disturbing anyone. But the hooligans decided to get to him, because the boy is often bullied here. We see 3 bullies who have just thrown this object to the boy. The chief of them confidently and with mockery said, "Hey, wormhead, get some sleep." They were very pleased with their pity, and they enjoyed hurting the defenseless and weak students. The boy was lying on the floor at that time without moving. He was hit very hard by the object thrown at him by the hooligans. Therefore, he was badly injured. The only advantage the protagonist has is the ability to regenerate. This is an S-class skill, but the protagonist is not at that rank. We see the almost dead boy start to regenerate in a few seconds and regain consciousness. But unfortunately, the main character feels a lot of pain when he regenerates. His regeneration is always accompanied by very severe pain. It is a rare and useless ability that requires no effort. That is why all the bullies and bullies attack the protagonist at school and make fun of him. They enjoy mocking the weak boy and humiliating him in every possible way. For while the boy is on the ground and dying in agony, thanks to his ability, he cannot prove what he's being beaten. The people to whom the boy addressed confidently said, "I can't call neither the teacher nor the police. I just can't call them, because the government is responsible for S-class students." The only reason the main character is still alive is because of his mother. One day the boy comes home as usual, and his mother says to him, "You've finally come. Come and have something to eat, son." She invites her only son to the table to eat after a hard day at school. The boy's father died when he was only 5 years old. Since that time he has been brought up by his mother. She takes care of him and does not allow the boy to lack anything or be upset. Therefore, she is always interested in his affairs at school and in his personal life. On the same day, his mom asked, "How are you doing at school?" The boy hesitated at first, because he was absorbed in his lunch and didn't hear what his mother was saying. But then he calmly replied that everything was fine at school and there were no problems, and that it had been fun today. The boy at this time thinks that if he does finish this school, he will be able to work as a hunter. He just needs to be a little patient and wait it out. With his abilities, he could be a C-class hunter. The salary of this position is not very big, but even with it, he will be able to provide a decent life for himself and his mom. The boy ponders this while eating the food his mom brought him. The boy realizes that their life is far from ideal right now, but if he gets a job and starts getting money, their lives will clearly improve, and they can both live happily ever after. But one day, something incredible happened, something that affected the boy and changed him fundamentally. He didn't expect it, and so he was shocked when he heard the terrible news, and for the first few minutes he stood stone-faced, not showing any emotion and trying to think about what he had just heard. Turns out those hooligans beat his mother to a pulp. She's going to be crippled. She will survive, but her health has been severely damaged. The boy initially could not believe it. It was a big emotional shock for him. The boy was told that it was all an accident. The main character listened to the story about this incident with tears in his eyes. His mother was the only person who supported him, and he could not believe that something bad had happened to her. So he took any bad news related to her very hard. They were in a restaurant when all this happened. The main character's mom works in this restaurant as a waitress. She was serving the table where the hooligans were sitting, and while she was bringing the food, one of the hooligans said to her, "You are very beautiful. Ha 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 ha." One of the bullies took her hand and said in a confident voice, "How about this? I can create diamonds with your powers. Ha 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 ha." At this time, the boy raised his hand and a large diamond appeared on his hand. The woman stood silent and tried to understand what was going on and what these people wanted from her. But the woman hurried away from the table. She did not like such unnecessary attention from these people, so she hurriedly gave them all the dishes they had ordered and left. But as she was leaving, she showed her carelessness and accidentally dropped her phone, which was lying right on the edge of the table. It was the phone of one of those hooligans, so when the woman accidentally picked it up, the phone fell and broke. The girl herself was very surprised by her clumsiness, so as soon as she heard the sound of the falling phone, she reached down and picked it up. She was upset that the phone had finally broken. It would have to be repaired so that the masters could repair it. But as soon as the woman said in a distraught voice, "Don't worry, I'll pay for the repairs," at that very second, white needles appeared from the ground and pierced the woman's body, almost killing her before she could finish her sentence. They pierced through her body and blood began to pour down her body. The boy was so determined to punish this woman for smashing his cell phone. Before he committed this crime, he shouted, "You bastards! How dare you smash my phone!" The protagonist realized this. He realized that this could not be an accident. He realized that these bullies just had to think of a reason to hurt his mother. He realized that she was not guilty of anything and could be standing next to him right now, perfectly healthy. But these boys had robbed him of his last hope, not robbed him of his family. The boy was furious. He had nothing left but his family, and these people had taken away his most sacred and only thing. He was filled with anger and desire together. He clenched his teeth so that many of his teeth fell out onto the ground. He was incredibly angry, and thought about how he could vent that anger and how he could get revenge for this. The last straw was that the boy saw the cake that Mama wanted to give him for his birthday. She had specially hidden it, and kept it until that day. But now it is unlikely that anything will work out, because she is lying in the hospital, and it is not clear when she will come out of there and whether she will come out at all. The boy was incredibly angry. He was filled with rage. At this time, somewhere on the outskirts of town, 3 hooligans were discussing what they had done. One of them was more worried than the others. He asked in a worried voice, "What would happen if that woman died?" But the other boys didn't care, as if they didn't even pay attention to the incident. So they answered their friend, "That's her problem, it doesn't concern us anymore, ha ha ha." The biggest bully came down from a flying rock that flew thanks to his friend's magical ability. He came down and said to that worried boy, "Why are you even worrying about this?" But his friend retorted, "Well, I just don't know." The bully with the blonde hair leaned over to his friend and said, "You think I would just give up?" But suddenly, a voice came from behind them. "So why didn't you?" A dark silhouette stood in the middle of the path and addressed the bullies. The boys couldn't figure out who it was until the man stepped out of the shadows and revealed himself. Out of the shadows came a boy, the same boy who had been bullied by those bullies at school. But now he was full of anger and desire for revenge. He said in a fierce voice to the bullies, "Why didn't you think of me?" The boy said with anger and undisguised hatred through his teeth, "Why did you do that?" But the bully did not react to these angry shouts of the boy. It was as if he did not pay attention and said to his friends, "What is he mumbling?" The protagonist was even more infuriated by this bully's calm attitude to what had happened. He will believe me him, that almost killing a man. This boy is still in a calm state and pretending as if nothing happened. So the protagonist, it pissed him off even more, and he shouted with all his might, "You scum!" But the bully paid attention to the protagonist's scream and said in a calm voice, "Ah, so it was your mother. So that's amazing." The bully really didn't know that it was the boy's mother, because such crimes were usual for him, and he didn't even pay attention to it. The protagonist with anger ran towards the bullies. He dreamed of revenge for everything, to avenge them for all the pain he had experienced during all the years of school, and most importantly, to avenge his mother, because it was the only thing that made him live on. So he ran with all his might on this boy to cause him maximum pain and preferably kill him. The boy forgot to ask the bully. As soon as the protagonist approached the blonde-haired boy, his body immediately just a large white needle that appeared as if from nowhere. But it did a lot of damage to the boy. It pierced him through, and the boy's body began to drip blood. The boy fell to his knees and felt an incredible pain in his chest. The bullies looked at all this and laughed. They realized that the boy could do no harm, but the protagonist still had the ability to regenerate. So this needle that pierced his body couldn't kill him, and the boy grabbed the object with his 2 hands to pull it out of his body and continue his plans. He was still filled with anger and desire together, so he was willing to endure any pain. The protagonist pulled that needle out of his body with force and threw it away from him. He shouted that the bully would still be sorry, and he would answer for all his crimes and for all his sins. The boy would make him feel pain and regret what he had done. But the bully was calm, and instead of 1 white needle, 100 more of these needles appeared over the boy, pointing in his direction with the desire to pierce his body once again. The protagonist was once again attacked. Hundreds of needles pierced his body, and now it was much harder to get them out than the previous one. The boy didn't have time to count the needles that pierced his body every moment. The bullies looked at all this and laughed. They pointed their fingers at the tormented boy, and jokingly asked, "What's wrong? Why are you so angry?" They obviously did not feel any danger to themselves, so they were just mocking a weak opponent. But the main character was not going to give up. He realized that his whole body was pierced with needles and he was bleeding, but the desire for revenge and anger were stronger. He still wanted to avenge his mother. He was used to feeling this pain, because these bullies bullied him at school every day. So he got up on his feet and all bleeding ran once again in the direction of the bullies with a shout, "I'll kill you! I'll get revenge!" But the boys weren't afraid of it even now. The blonde-haired bully said to his friend, "Hey, buddy, scare him a little." His friend immediately understood everything, but a little hesitantly, he still fulfilled his comrade's request. One of the bullies raised his hand and a huge ball of light began to appear from his palm. It was a heat or fireball that would harm the boy as soon as the protagonist got a little closer to the bullies. A large fireball appeared next to the protagonist at the same second. It measured the boy and his skin. The boy felt incredible pain. He tried to regenerate, but it was also giving him agony. Not only. And his whole body was soiled with needles, but he also felt an incredible heat. The main character fell to his knees, not reaching just a little bit to the bullies. He tried his best to get close to them and cause them damage, but due to the large amount of injuries, the boy fell to the ground and tried to recover. Behind the boy could be seen a trail of blood that flowed out of him during all the injuries. The hooligans realized that they had finally won, and quietly went past the boy to go about their business. They decided to leave his body lying there, and leave the place as soon as possible. But the boy did not give up, and grabbed the leg of one of the passing hooligans with his hand. He didn't want to let them go. He was still angry and hungry for revenge. Even though he was overwhelmed with pain, he still wanted to do as much damage to the bullies as possible. But even that didn't stop the bully. The blonde-haired boy wanted to finally finish his enemy, so a second later his hand turned into a large stone, and with this stone he hit the protagonist hard in the face. His hand was a large, solid piece of stone, and so the blows that the boy took on was a monstrous force. The bully beat his hand on the boy's head again and again, injuring him more and more. He was surprised at the boy's insolence, so he decided to take out his anger on him. The bully realized that he is times stronger and the protagonist cannot oppose him, so it carried new and new blows with the desire to finally finish him. After a while, the bully did get behind the boy. They moved some distance away and one of the hooligans said, "We have to hide this dirt somewhere." He realized that it was not worth leaving the boy lying here, because he might regenerate again and come to them. So one of the hooligans conceived one cunning plan. The blonde-haired bully extended his arm forward and his hand was immediately covered in a bluish light. He pointed his hand towards the boy and told him to lie still. He was obviously up to something bad. He was plotting to make sure that the boy would never bother them again and would not come back to them. The protagonist did not give up. Despite the terrible pain and agony after these injuries, he still shouted to his enemy, "I will kill you! I will take revenge!" He dreamed of quickly recovering all his strength to try to launch new attacks on these bullies. The protagonist shouted that he swore that he would do it and fulfill his wish and avenge everything. At that time, his body was enveloped by some strange spikes. They were black spikes that did not let the boy move, and they were enveloping his whole body with every second. The blonde-haired bully, who was the culprit behind it all smirking, said, "Good luck, try to make it." He realized that he was safe and there was no way this boy could hurt him, so all the boy was doing was smiling and laughing. The hooligans were walking away, and the main one, still smirking, added, "Try to make it, if you can get out of here. Good luck." But the unbelievable happened. The main character realized that he was trapped in these spikes. There were only black needles around him, which prevented him from moving. He couldn't get out and there was no way to break these. The boy was in pain every second because of these spikes. But because he possessed regeneration, he couldn't die in this place. So he was just trapped in this black and couldn't get out. The boy screamed with rage. He couldn't believe this was happening to him. He still had anger and hatred in him. He screamed as hard as he could and beat his fists against those spikes, hoping to break them and get out of here. But he only saw drops of blood that dripped from those spikes after his blows. The spikes themselves remained unharmed, and the place where he was trapped could not be broken. After a few minutes, the protagonist still realized that he couldn't break this barrier. It was simply impossible. His hands were already all dripping with blood, and after numerous blows he had no success and couldn't even do a little damage to this place. He was absolutely locked in here with no way of getting out. After a minute, the protagonist realizes he's running out of air. He has nothing to breathe and his mind is getting cloudy. Thoughts were jumbled in his head. There was not enough air, and the boy began to lose consciousness. There is no chance for air to get in this confined space, and the boy started to suffocate just a few minutes after he finished trying to destroy this place. The boy's mind was fading. It was very painful, but thanks to his ability to regenerate, he could not die. His strength and consciousness returned after a few minutes. He feels alive again, because thanks to this regeneration ability, he cannot die from natural causes, and the lack of air is not a problem for him. However, there is one problem. Though his strength and consciousness have returned thanks to regeneration, the boy can't do it painlessly. Any regeneration gives him unbearable pain and agony. In his despair, the boy began to deliberately carry his injuries. He would take one of the spikes in his hands and deliberately insert them into his body. He dreamed of inflicting more pain on himself in order to forget everything that was happening in his life. He couldn't accept that his mom was mortally wounded and those hooligans almost killed her. He was tormented by helplessness and the fact that he could not take revenge on these criminals and punish them. The boy's consciousness was suddenly visited by his mom. He saw her silhouette and remembered who he should live for, who he should fight for, and try to get out of this. He realized that his family was still alive, and the boy should fight until his last breath to stay by his mom's side and help her as long as she needs him. The protagonist felt as powerless as possible. He was lying alone in this coffin with no hope of getting out. But even in that state, his mom, she's still alive. The protagonist has promised himself that he will get out of here by all means. He will break this barrier and avenge everything. He has no other choice. He must fight to the very end for the sake of his mom. No matter what way or means, he'll do it for his family. I'll be back. The action of the story is transferred to the street of one city. On a big screen, a television program is being broadcast. The presenter of this program says loudly, "You are the show, Meeting with a Hunter. And today the famous S-Class hunters have come to us." Apparently, the big screen on one of the city streets was broadcasting a popular entertainment television program. The program host continued, "These three are also known for their unique personalities. Are you also involved in community service?" The presenter interviews these three famous people. The action moves to the room where this popular TV show is filmed. One of the three answers, "Ever since we were children, we've been helping those in need." Ah, that fills our hearts with tenderness. It was clear that these three people were helping the rest of us, and now they are telling us how much merit they have done. One of the three replies that it's just their job. It turns out that they are the three hooligans. After a while, they become people's favorites and everyone idolizes them. They pretend to help people and have never done anything wrong. Now they sit on a popular television show and talk about their heroic deeds and claim they've never done anything wrong. The host cheerfully replies that it's amazing and he's proud of them. The host clapped for these guys, and after a few seconds asked the next question. 5 years ago, because of an accident, is it true that you hurt someone? The host knows that there are a lot of rumors about this team, and one of those rumors is that they almost killed someone years ago during their high school youth. And so, the anchors ask this provocative question. There was silence in the hall for a few seconds. No one knew what to say, but after gathering his thoughts, one of the three boys decided to answer. He said the victim was the mother of their close, very close friend. The boy held his hand over his face and could see tears streaming down his face. He pretends to be very sorry and has a hard time remembering this day. The boy tries to show everyone that he is sorry, and it is hard for him to remember. The boy with tears in his eyes continued his story. It happened when we were still students. My abilities were not yet so well understood. He said all this with tears in his eyes and tried to make everyone feel sorry for him. But in his head, the boy was thinking, how easy it is to fool these people. He realized that everyone would believe him now, and that he had gotten away with this situation years ago. And the blonde-haired boy continued, "I apologize to my friend, but since that day we have not spoken at all. I want to take this opportunity, sitting here in this TV studio, to apologize again and apologize to him once again." The boy continued to pretend that he was very sorry and wanted to apologize to his longtime friend. The blonde-haired boy started his next phrase. He sobbed and said, "Hey, my friend, I'm sorry." But no sooner had this bully finished his phrase than the studio was deafened by an incomprehensible and very loud sound. Someone broke into the studio and kicked the door. The blow was so strong that the door flew many meters forward into the studio. Someone very strong stood in the doorway and intended to get into the room as soon as possible. This door flew right into the face of the bully. It was heading towards those three people, and so the bullies hurriedly tried to use their strength to defend themselves from this blow. The blonde-haired boy used his white spiked ability and siphoned off this door that flew straight at his head. He was very much surprised at this sudden appearance of his enemy, because now he was hoping to have a good time on this TV show and talk about what a hero he was. But something went wrong, and it seems that now he's going to be in danger. All the people who were sitting in the room at the time and enjoying the filming of the show ran around. Everyone was screaming, "Run! It's the monster!" All the people ran in different directions. They tried to save themselves as fast as possible because everyone knew that nothing good can be expected from the monster. So everyone headed for the exit as fast as they could. Meanwhile, the incredible creature that had infiltrated this studio was heading towards the three guys. It had huge feet, and every step of this monster echoed throughout the room. The monster moved closer to the group of boys in a few seconds and struck the boy with blonde hair with a powerful blow. The bully hadn't expected such a rapid development and the monster's incredible strength, so he didn't have time to do anything and just watched as the huge fist flew straight into his face. Let's go back to the time when the boy was still trapped in this prison of spikes and dreamed of getting out of it. He hit the spikes with all his might and tried to break the barrier at least a little bit. He dreamed of seeing the sky and breathing fresh air at least for a second. But he couldn't do anything, and the only thing he could see was blood on his hands. The main character doesn't even know how long he has been here. He lost track of time a long time ago and doesn't know how many days he's been here. Months? Years? And these spikes made of diamond don't even have a scratch on them. He couldn't even damage them by a millimeter. But there's something important. The protagonist has finally realized something. His ability to regenerate is different from other, similar abilities. He's been on his own for a long time, and he's gotten a better understanding of his ability and realized that he can capitalize on it. Because he is constantly regenerating due to his injuries, his skeletal strength has increased because of this. The exoskeleton, it's bursting out. His bones become stronger each time after he regenerates from his injuries. Thanks to this diamond prism that the spikes are made of, the protagonist's entire body is broken. And from this broken body comes an exoskeleton. It's improved bones that are not so easy to break anymore. And it's from this skeleton with new ultra-strong bones that he starts to create his new body. It really hurt. Blood. It was absolutely everywhere. And with it were bones. And all the protagonist felt was pain. But because of this incredible pain, the boy began to get what he had long wanted. He began to create a brand new and super strong body. But it was not a quick process. It took many days to create a new body. And all those days consisted of incredible pain and repetition of the same actions, one and the same. Without rest, over and over. Just the pain. And it was repeated every day, every second. Let's go back to the room where the TV show was recently filmed. The body of a boy with blonde hair was lying against the wall, leaving a dent in the floor. The impact was so strong that this bully flew a few meters away and left a dent in the floor. In front of the hooligans stood an absolutely incredible creature. It was incredibly strong. All of its bones were as if made of iron. It was a creature of incredible size and very strong. It could withstand any threat and any damage. The only thing he wanted was to accomplish what he had planned, to avenge all the days of suffering and torment he had endured. He longed to finally quench his anger and thirst for revenge. He was ready to do anything to accomplish what he had planned. At that moment, the boy remembered how that blonde-haired bully with a smirk on his face told him, "Good luck, if you can get out." At that moment, the bully had no idea that his death would come for him, and that day had determined his fate. At that moment, the friends of the blonde-haired boy, the other hooligans, also realized who was in front of them. They opened their mouths and couldn't believe what they were seeing before their eyes. They had no idea that this boy could come back to life and come to them. They had already forgotten about him. They thought he was long dead. But the boy didn't look at them indignantly, and the only thing on his face was anger. He was glad he could finally get to them. This moment represented all the days of torment while he lived in this black cocoon of black thorns. But now he saw his enemies right in front of him and said to them sternly, "Well, I got out." The bullies were shocked. They didn't expect that this boy could come back to them. Even the bully with the blonde hair who had already gotten to his feet was shocked and couldn't believe his eyes. The protagonist didn't stall for time and began to do what he had always come to do in the first place. He attacked the first bully that stood in front of him. There was a bright white glow around the monster, It was one of the bullies trying to attack him as well. The icon had attacked him last time, but now nothing was working. This monster didn't completely feel anymore. His skeleton prevented this fiery mass from harming him. The boy struck out with his hand, and at that very second, the head of one of the bullies flew off his body. The boy had committed his first revenge. He had waited many days for this while he was locked up in agony. He began to put his plan into action, and he was overwhelmed with anger. After all, they were the ones responsible for his mom being in the hospital. The other hooligans were shocked. They did not expect to see such a big power. With one blow, the boy could defeat one of the hooligans. And his friends looked at it with horror. They did not understand what to do and how to save themselves. After all, they realized that they were guilty and now they will be punished. But for many months they lived with the knowledge that they would be unpunished, and the boy left them forever. One of the bullies tried to attack the protagonist. He stretched forward his arm, hoping to use his abilities against this monster and somehow stop him, but his attempts were in vain. The boy is already used to all kinds of pain, and he is ready for anything. Nothing can prevent him and stop him. The bully tried to encircle the monster from all sides with earth and stones. He formed a special cocoon, in which he locked the monster and tried not to let him out of it. The boy was trapped in this place, but now nothing could limit him. He was too strong and nothing could lock him up like last time. Gritting his teeth, the boy tensed up and used all his strength to break down the barrier. He realized that these bullies couldn't stop him. Today, he is stronger than all of them. He had gone through incredible agony to become the strongest, and no barrier would put him down, so he shattered this cocoon of rocks and planks and climbed out. But this resistance from the bullies made the protagonist even more angry. He had waited all his life for this moment. He had endured so many days for this, and now he would not dare to tolerate that these bullies again bullied him. All school wanted revenge, and anger accumulated in him, and now the hour of retribution has come. He took the head of one of the bullies. The protagonist had built up anger all these years. He was venting all his emotions now. This was the moment he had been waiting for months and years. But the blonde-haired bully appeared behind the boy again. His hand was once again turned into a stone of diamonds, and he was preparing to deliver a crushing blow to the monster, hoping to save himself. It had helped him last time, and the boy had not been able to recover from such heavy blows. But would it help him now? The bully tried to strike. He gathered all his strength and all his power, because he was already tired after the monster threw him into the wall. But the boy realized that this was his last chance, and if the bully could not defeat the monster would punish him and spill all his anger for all the sins of the bully. But his attempts were thorough. No strokes could harm this monster, and so the blonde-haired boy decided to use his last chance. He summoned once again those needles to pierce the body of the enemy. He hoped that this time he would be able to do it as well as last time, because at that moment they defeated the boy thanks to the fact that hundreds of needles pierced his body. All the games reached their destination. They all pierced this monster, and there was not a single place left on the body of the comma where they hit the needle. They all pierced through, and blood showed on the boy's body. But it seems that this time it wasn't as fatal as last time. The protagonist has long since gotten used to more, and no amount of needles leaking through his body can stop him and extinguish his rage. He calmly rises to his feet, as if nothing had happened. At that moment, the bully realizes that he has no more weapons left to confront this demon. He realizes that he has used his trump cards, and now it seems the hour of reckoning has come. The main character more than ever. Not only had he endured pain all these years, and his body had become impervious to any damage, he was also filled with anger and revenge. He wanted to use all his strength to accomplish what he had started, and avenge his mother and himself. With a terrified face, he rose and looked at his enemy. He wished him eternal torment in hell. Bully grimaced at what was happening in front of his eyes. This monster, as if nothing had happened, stood in front of him and looked him straight in the eyes, with incredible anger. At this time, the boy with blonde hair was able to make himself a full diamond body. This armor was to protect him from the attacks of this monster. But the eyes of the boy radiated uncertainty. He himself understood that it seems that his hour has come, and today will have to answer for all his crimes, and no armor can help him. Despite this, the bully struck with his last strength. He took aim and hit the diamond hand directly at the monster's head. His blow was incredibly strong. It was the strongest blow he had ever made in his entire life, because he realized that now he was in mortal danger, and put all his emotions and all his abilities into this incredibly strong blow. But how much he was surprised when he found out that everything seemed to be going wrong, and all his efforts were in vain. He didn't see the monster breaking, and he didn't see it bleeding, though his opponents usually do. Everything went wrong, and the boy realized that it seemed to be his last day. The protagonist took the boy's fist in his mouth. He didn't let it do any damage to himself, and so now with the boy's hand in his mouth, the protagonist can deliver serious blows to his opponent. He can finally, at long last, spew out all his anger and all his hatred right now. He has been waiting for this for many months, and now his power has no limits. The bully tried to run away, but it didn't work. He was pierced by his own needle. It was the diamond needle that woke up his master, and he couldn't escape. Behind him stood the protagonist, and watched his suffering. He had waited for this for a long time, and now he was watching his main enemy, the one responsible for the fact that he had lost his mother, suffer. The boy with the blonde hair shouted hysterically, "Stay back! Please stay away!" He was begging the protagonist to have mercy on him, to take pity on him and let him live. He begged, bleeding, but it was too late. He had committed too many sins. He had caused too much suffering to the protagonist. He had caused too much suffering to the people. He deserved what happened to him today, and now he will suffer and be tormented forever. No one deserves mercy after so many atrocities and so much harm done. So the protagonist finally realized his main dream, and realized together, vented his anger. To this day he has been walking for many months, and when the bully asked this monster of a colon, "Who are you? Who are you? Why are you doing this?" He couldn't understand who was hiding under the mask of this harsh monster, and who could have so much power that overpowered him and his team so easily and alone. Trying to find out if it was a man or a demon. "Don't you recognize me?" The protagonist asked this question to his opponent, looking at him with stern eyes. He pulled back a part of his skeleton and showed his face. He thought that the bully had long ago recognized him, but that turned out not to be true. Let him look at his face now and beg for mercy, just as the boy had once begged for mercy from him at school. The bully looked at this face with horror. He hoped that he would never see him again. He hoped that the boy had died many years ago. But now he is looking into these eyes, and this face with tears in his eyes. He can't believe that he found him, and now it seems that nothing can stop him. So all the bully has to do is beg for mercy with a pale face. He remembered all those days at school when he and his friends had taken offense from this boy. He remembered each of the blows he had thrown at the boy while they bullied him and laughed at him. He remembered his face when that boy had agonized after his bullying. But it seems now he had come to take revenge, and nothing could save the bullies from his vengeance and wrath. The protagonist deals crushing blows to his enemy. He spares neither his strength nor his abilities. He shows all his power, and rage bursts out of him. He enjoys watching his enemy in agony and how he gains the upper hand in the battle against him. He has been waiting for this moment for a long time, and now his fists are pounding against his enemy's head. The main character defeated his enemy. He avenged all the years of bullying, and most importantly, on the strength for his mom. He dreamed of this day, and today, his dream came true. He showed all his abilities for the sake of making his enemy feel what he felt for many years. The main character stood in the middle of the television studio. Around him were the bodies and his defeated enemies. None of them managed to survive. They all answered for their sins, for their crimes. The boy looked around and saw that everything was destroyed, and nothing alive was left near him. He was satisfied. At last he had done it. The boy looked into the puddle and saw his reflection there. It was the reflection of a monster that has incredible power that just spewed out all his anger. But there was one more important thing that the boy absolutely had to do. His mom was still in the hospital, so the boy hurriedly threw his cloak over himself so that no one would notice nothing unusual, and sneaked closer to the hospital to visit his mom and find out how she was feeling. Because all these months in confinement, he thought only about them and whether she would stay alive. The protagonist entered the hospital and gazed longingly at his mother's body. She was still alive, but she had aged a lot. Time passed, and her condition didn't change. She still couldn't walk or breathe on her own. She was in a serious condition, but still alive, and the boy cried and looked at her. For just now he had taken revenge on those who dared to do this. The action of the story is transferred to one of the forests. In this forest a portal opened, from which a girl appeared. The girl stood surrounded by other people who encircled her on all sides. One of them says to her, "Well done, healer. This is your first time entering such a deep portal, isn't it?" The girl stood embarrassed beside them and did not accept what was wanted of her. She said, "Yes. Ah, ha, ha. First time. Thank you for the compliments." The girl was really very embarrassed and didn't expect such attention from these people. The men encircled the girl even more tightly, and one of them said, "No way, it's us who are grateful to you." The girl looked at all of them in disbelief and said with undisguised fear, "Hey, what are you doing?" One of the people and said, "Did you know that no one ever knows what happens inside the portal?" The girl cancelled, stood and looked at these people. She guessed what they wanted to do to her. But without waiting for action on their part, she tried to say, "What? Wait, what do you want to do?" The man walked up to the girl and grabbed her hands, and with his other hand he held her face. And he said, "Depending on the complexity of the portal, it could take a month to get out of here. In the meantime, I'm going to ask you to take good care of me." Tears started to flow from her eyes. She didn't want to obey these people and wanted to be left alone. But it seems that no one can help her in this situation. There are too many opponents, and she has to obey them. But suddenly, the head of one of these criminals fell to the ground. Someone had attacked him from behind, and someone decided to prevent this crime. An incredible hero appeared right behind these people's backs and prevented something bad from happening to the girl. And they looked at this creature and asked with horror, "Who are you?" One of these people decided to ask their friends if there was any wizard left who could help them. But it seems that the hour of reckoning has come, and now they will be punished for their crimes. They saw a huge monster in front of them that looked at them unwaveringly and was determined to defeat everyone here. It was a bone monster that was much stronger and taller than anything these people had encountered. They didn't expect to see such a big and strong monster in front of them. The entire team of these people pounced on this creature, all of them determined to use the maximum of their strength and ability to disable the enemy. These men shouted, "You're dead! We can easily behavior you! This is absurd!" They all wished to get rid of this unarmored guest as soon as possible. All the blows that these people threw at the monster didn't hurt it in any way. He just stood there and waited for someone to hit him again or strike him with a weapon. Nothing could hurt or injure him. All blows bounced off his super strong bones, his skeleton protecting him from any attacks. One of the men shouted, "He is a demon!" Indeed, another explanation was difficult to find. People did not understand why they could not harm this creature and why he is not susceptible to any attacks. All their strength was running out, but they could not even touch this demon. But the protagonist was tired of waiting. He did not tolerate all these attempts to harm him, and with a slight movement of his hand destroyed 2 more opponents. At the same time, they tried to harm him somehow, but they did not succeed. The boy quickly and unharmed them, and their bodies now lay at his feet. The others looked at what was happening with horror. They could not understand who it was, and who could have such a majestic power point, because their friends were already dead lying on the ground. And it seems that they are also waiting for it now. So the remaining looked at their fate with horror. A few more waves of his hand and that's it. All the enemies are defeated and no one wants to harm the protagonist anymore. The remaining people now also lay on the ground and did not oppose him in any way. Everyone deserved his punishment. The boy was walking calmly on the ground with the corpses of his defeated enemies beside him. He walked slowly towards the girl who had been molested by those criminals. He did not touch her, and the girl was sitting quietly nearby. The girl also looked at the creature with horror, for she too did not understand who it was and who could save her. But through her tears she said, "Thank you. Thank you for saving me." The girl sat on her knees and thanked the protagonist. But he did not feel her gratitude, and with a slight movement of his hand he also destroyed the girl. If you're transported back to the studio where the TV show was recorded. The boy there sat on his knees and looked up at the ceiling. Next to him were the corpses of his defeated enemies, the very bullies who had bullied him as a child. But suddenly, the boy heard a voice behind him. It was a woman's voice, and the woman was saying, "You got your revenge. Well done." The boy did not understand who dared to come to him, and so he just shouted sternly, "Be quiet!" A girl came out of the shadows and approached the protagonist. She said that she was the president of the Korean Hunters Association, and her name was Mr. Kang Ji-hyun. The girl had blonde hair and green eyes. She was wearing a brown-colored cloak. The boy asked her how she knew him and why she had come. The woman replied that she had been watching from the very beginning and since the incident that took place 5 years ago. But the boy didn't need any more words. He was still angry and still reeling from this emotional turmoil. So he attacked the girl with the desire to destroy her and hurt her. But suddenly the girl said, "Your mother, I can save her." The boy heard these words and stopped his hand from reaching the woman's face. The boy was confused. He asked the woman what, but the woman calmly replied that his mother could be saved from the state she was in, and this woman could help to do it. She said the only person who can help save his mother is the world's only S-class healer, and the woman is that person, and she is the only one who can save his mother. The boy said incredulously, "How can I believe you? Why did you think I would believe you so easily?" But the woman calmly replied that while the boy was in the puncture, his mother remained alive and did not die. The girl asked, "Does the boy really believe it's all thanks to the hospital?" It turned out that this woman kept the main character's mother alive and did not let her die. The boy was shocked. He could not believe that this woman herself could find him, because he would do absolutely anything to cure his mother again. So he said without a second thought, "What do you want?" The protagonist was ready to do absolutely everything. The girl calmly said, "You need a very strong hunter. His level of strength is really high, perhaps even someone who can resist nuclear weapons." Because of this, the magic beasts of the portal were almost always subdued. But the portal didn't disappear. A portal without monsters becomes an empty space, and with that in mind I wage war to find the hunters. But in Korea, we're suffering from a shortage of hunters. One day we were attacked by the Japanese, which I couldn't stop. The girl says she's been doing this for a long time and has a lot of experience, but now she needs a boy to help her realize her plans. After all, his power can help her and she can help him stop his mother's health. The girl continues her telling daughter, "If you fight Japan as a Korean hunter, there will be total war. But if you hunt them inside portals as monsters, there will be no problem. Please, if you help me, I'll save your mom." The girl finished her story and finally offered the boy a deal where she would commit to saving his family's life at the end. The boy at that time took out a picture of his mother. He looked at it and tears flowed down his cheeks. Looking at it, the woman said, "Become a magical beast for the sake of your mother's life." The boy understood that only in this way he could save his family and finally restore justice in this life and see his mother alive next to him.